A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahima wa ala ali Ibrahima innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahima wa ala ali Ibrahima innaka Hamidum Majid. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana zidna ilma ya muqallibul qulub sabbit qalbi ala dinik. Ameen. Surah Al-Baqarah. Today we will do the 18th part of the surah, in which we will complete from verse number 238 till 252. हाफिज़ु अला सलावाति वस्सलावातिल वुस्ता वक़ूमू लिल्लाहि क़ानितीन. Remain wary of your prayers, especially the middle one, and stand in humility before Allah. In the midst of the discussion concerning divorce, mention is made of Salah. In all situations of life, Allah should never be forgotten, and Salah is the epitome of His remembrance, which is the life source of this world. Even in the heat of occupation, Salah must never be omitted. Special reference is made of Salatul Wusta, middle Salah, which according to many authentic narrations refer to the Asr Salah. It receives special mention because its time is usually when one is occupied. At this particular time, people are generally engrossed in distracting activities which may even impede the most mindful people. Hazrat Ubaidah bin Sabit Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu narrates that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Allah has made the 5 salah compulsory. Allah has taken a pledge to forgive the one who performs them observing the proper wuzu, time and carrying out of the wuzu with humility. Whoever does not do this has to pledge with Allah. If He wills, He may forgive them. Otherwise, He may punish them. Narrated by Abu Dawud, Volume 1, page 61. And stand in humility before Allah. The word qanati may be translated as in humility, in obedience, or with serenity. Hazrat Zaid bin Arqam Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu narrates that the Sahaba Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhum used to talk during their salah until this verse was revealed. Whereafter, they would remain absolutely silent except for the Quranic recitation and du'as, narrated by Bukhari, volume 2, page 650. Hazrat Mujahid Rahmullah explains Qunut to mean that a person performs long rukus, his gaze remaining fixed on the ground in humility, and he does not turn to look anywhere else. He should not even move the pebbles from the place of prostration, nor entertain any worldly thoughts. Other commentators explain it to mean that a person perfects his obedience to Allah without allowing the slightest deviation from any act necessary for this obedience, narrated by Ruhul Mani, volume 2, page 107. Now, verse number 239. وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ فَرِجَالًا أَوْ رُكْبَانًا فَإِذَا آمِنْتُمْ فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَمَا أَلَّمَكُمْ مَا لَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ. If you are in fear, then perform salah while standing or riding. And when you return to safety, then remember Allah as He had taught you that which you knew out. The above question is indeed a pertinent one because salah cannot be performed properly in a life-threatening situation. The verse under discussion provides insight into the answer by instructing the performance of salah by way of indication, standing without ruku and sajda, or while seated upon one's conveyance if the opportunity does not present himself to dismount. When in suffer condition, the salah should once again be performed as has been taught. If there is no way in which salah can be performed because of severe fighting, it may be postponed to be read as qadha later. In a narration of Bukhari, volume 1, page 83, Hazrat Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala anhu reports that during the battle of the trench, Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu cursed the kuffar because their instant attacks had not allowed him to perform his Asr Salah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him that he had also been unable to perform his Salah. The sun had by then almost set, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, together with the other Sahaba radhiyallahu ta'ala anhum, proceeded to Wadi Batham, performed their wuzu and then their Asr Salah when the sun had already set. Then they performed the Maghrib Salah. Hazrat Ali Raziyallahu ta'ala anhu reports that on the very occasion Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as a curse to the mushrikeen, said, "May Allah fill their graves and homes with fire, because they prevented us from the middle salah until the sun set." Narrated by Muslim, volume 1, page 226. Now verse number 240. وَالَّذِينَ يُتَوَفُّونَ مِنْكُمْ وَيَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا وَصِيَّةً لِأَزْوَاجِهِمْ مَتَاعًا إِلَى الْحَوْلِ غَيْرَ إِخْرَاجٍ فَإِنْ خَرَجْنَ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي فَعَلْنَا فِي أَنفُسِهِنَّ مِنْ مَعْرُوفٍ وَاللَّهُ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. Those of you who are about to die and leave their wives behind should bequeath unto their wives a provision for a year, so as not to turn them out of their homes. If they go out of their own accord, there is no sign for you in that which they do with themselves within their rights. Allah is mighty, the wise. During the period of ignorance, a widow was kept isolated for an entire year, whereafter she had her lap filled with camel dung. She was then paraded through the streets and alleys, throwing this dung about as an indication of the expiry of her waiting period. This has been narrated in Bukhari, volume 2, page 803, Muslim, volume 1, page 487, and Abu Dawud, volume 1, page 314. Islam restricted this period to 4 months and 10 days without the other practices, as has been discussed already. The above verse instructs dying men to consider the plight of their wives by bequeathing a year's provision for them, together with the right to reside in his home. They did, however, have the option of going elsewhere. This law was later abrogated by the law of inheritance, which allotted a specific share for the wives, wherefrom they are able to provide for themselves during the period of iddat. However, she cannot be forced to leave the home, even though it may fall into the estate. Verse number 241. وَلِلْمُطَلَّقَاتِ مَتَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ. For the divorced woman is a provision in kindness which is incumbent upon those fearful of Allah. Verse number 242. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. The law of giving muta to those divorcees who were yet untouched by their husbands, with no door being fixed on for them, has already been discussed. The above verse, according to certain commentators, discuss the same law as an emphasis. The author of Ruhul Mani, volume 2, page 160, writes that this is substantiated by a narration of Ibn Juraj rahmullah. From Ibn Zayd rahmullah, he says that when the verse abundant duty on those who do good, verse 236, was revealed, a person committed that this is optional for those who wish to do so. At this juncture, the verse under discussion was revealed, that is, which is incumbent upon those fearful of Allah. Other commentators state that a provision in this verse referred to the maintenance of the divorcee during her iddat, and because of the broad nature of the word, it may also include all the laws discussed previously concerning the giving of the full dowry or half of it. It is all the more important for him to pay the woman after the divorce, since there remains even less chance for her foregoing the dowry. Now, verse number 243. Alam tara ila allazina kharaju min diyarihim wa hum ulufun hazar al-maut faqala lahum Allahu mutu summa ahyahum inna Allaha lazu fazlin ala nasi walakinna akthara nasi la yashkurun. Here you have those people who fled their homes in the thousand out of the fear of death. Allah said unto them, Die, and then brought them all back to life. Verily lies the conferrer of blessing to man, but most people are ungrateful. Verse number 244. وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Fight in the way of Allah and know that definitely Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing. Allama Baghawi Rahmullah writes in Malumat-e-Tanzil, volume 1, page 223, that the majority of commentators are of the opinion that this verse refers to the people of town called the Wardan. Once, when a plague swept through the town, many people left the town while others remained behind. Those who left the town were unharmed, while most of those who remained behind perished. When the people returned after the epidemic had abated, the survivor of the town thought that they shall also do the same if ever the pestilence returned. The following year the plague returned once more, whereupon nearly everyone fled the town and stayed in an open plain where they thought they would be safe. Allah dispatched two angels who shouted out from above and below them, Mutu, die, and they all died. Another report says that once a king from a Bani Israel commanded them to fight the enemy in jihad. Although they had previously prepared an army, they became cowardly on this occasion. They told the king that the place where he had commanded them to march to was engulfed in a fatal epidemic, and that they will wait for it to disappear before proceeding. Allah then afflicted them with a plague that began to destroy them. Grief stricken by this, they all emerged from their homes. Seeing this, the king supplicated to Allah to show these people a sign that there is no escape from death, even in fleeing. Consequently, as they left the town, Allah said, Mutu, die, and they all, together with their animals, perished on the spot like a single person. Their corpses remained in this state for 8 days and began to blot. People were unable to bury such a large number of bodies, so they built a wall around them to prevent animals from devouring them. Later, when the Prophet of the time, Hazrat Hiskil passed by, he was astounded by the sight. Allah asked him whether he wished to witness a miracle. Then he replied in affirmative. Allah brought them all back to life. Allahu Akbar. According to another report, he made dua to Allah to bring back life into them. When they come back to life, they all proclaimed, Sublime is Allah, our sustainer, for whom is all praise. Besides you, O Allah, there is no other deity. They then returned to their people. Hazrat Qatada Raziyallahu Ta'ala says that Allah caused them to die as a punishment because they sought to escape death. He then returned them to life since they were still to complete their lives. If this were not so, Allah would never have brought them back to life. Allama Baghawi Rahmullah quotes various reports with regard to their actual number. These are 3,000, 4,000, 8,000, 10,000, 30,000, 40,000, up to 70,000. He says that a figure is excess of 10,000 is more likely to be correct because of the plurality of the word thousands, which in Arabic denotes amount in excess of 10,000. Besides these two reports, many more are recorded in the books of tafsir, but they all originate from the Bani Israel called Israeli narration. Understanding the Quran is not based upon these reports, the veracity of which cannot be established. They are therefore best left unquoted. It is sufficient to understand that Allah is capable of giving death to thousands or more people at one time, just as He is able to bring them all back to life. Since Rasulullah ﷺ was untutored, he had no knowledge of these events which pertained to the Bani Israel. Allah informed him of these, which is a clear sign of his apostleship, since the Arabs were generally unaware of these things. With regard to the second verse, that is, fight in the way of Allah. Commentators say that it was addressed to those people in the second incident who attempted to excuse themselves from fighting in jihad. Others maintain that the order is directed towards the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this case, the incident of Bani Israel served as an introduction to this order. Therefore, this ummah should not avoid jihad because of the fear of death, which is inevitable to every person, be he engaged in jihad or sitting at home. Fighting in jihad will earn a person untold reward, while refraining from the same will only deprive him of these. It is therefore wiser to participate, since death will still come to either person. The plague that afflicted the Bani Israel was a source of punishment for them, whereas it is mercy for the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as he said in a hadith. Allah sends plague as a chastisement to nation, but has made it unmercy unto my ummah. Should a person be present in a place of pestilence, but remains there with the conviction that harm can only come to him if it is decreed by Allah, then such a person will attain the rank of the martyrs. Narrated by Bukhari, Volume 2, page 853. Those who die in a plague, as well as those who remain patiently in the affected area, attain this privilege, as reported in the same reference of Bukhari. Hazrat Abdurrahman bin Auf radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Hazrat Osama bin Zaid radiallahu ta'ala anhu report that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, if you hear of an epidemic in another place, then do not go there. But if it is prevalent in the place where you are situated, do not flee. Narrated by Bukhari, Volume 2, page 853. Hazrat Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu reports that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, to flee from a place of pestilence is like deserting the battlefield. Whoever remains there with patience will attain the rank of a martyr. Narrated by Mishkatul Masabi, Volume 1, page 139 from Ahmad. Verse number 245. ما ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا فيضاعفه له أضعافا كثيرة والله يقبض ويبسط وإليه ترجعون. Translation of this verse is, who is it that will lend to Allah a good loan so that Allah may increase it manifold? Allah straightens and increases, and unto Him shall you all be returned. The incident behind the revelation of this particular verse is recorded in Lubabun Naqul from the narration of Ibn Habban, who quotes Hazrat Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He says that when the verse the likeness of those who stand in the way of Allah is as a grain which grows 7 years. In every year 100 grains, Surah Baqarah verse 261 was revealed. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam supplicated to Allah to increase the reward. Thereafter, Allah revealed this above verse, which is phrased in the interrogative mood, giving greater encouragement. The author of Ruhul Mani says that good loan means spending halal wealth solely for Allah's pleasure, Volume 2, page 162. Allah, who is the creator and sole owner of everything, requires no assistance from any person. It is because of His infinite grace that He rewards the temporary owner of His wealth, man, when man gives in charity that really belongs to Allah. In addition to this, man is promised to reward multiplied manifold even if he spends with the correct intention and himself and his family. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in the narration of Bukhari, volume 1, page 189, when a person spends even the equivalent of a date in charity and Allah accepts only what is halal, then Allah accepts this and nurtures it just like any of you will go up to his fold. Thus, this little contribution will be increased until it is equal in size to a mountain. A narration of Muslim, volume 2, page 258 reports that Rasulullah sallallahu said, when the last third of the night enters, Allah declares, who will supplicate to me, and that I answer his plea. Who ask of me and that I may grant him, who will seek pardon from me that I may pardon him, who will give a loan to one who has everything and is not unjust. These proclamations continue till dawn. In this hadith, it is emphasis that Allah requires nothing from anyone, but seek His loan for the benefit of the one spending it. Allah says He is not unjust, meaning in this case that is charity will not go unnoticed, but shall reap its due reward. Allah straightens and increases. Allah reserves the right to grant to any person whatever He wills and may restrict the provision of whoever He wills. This has been mentioned in numerous verses of the Quran. For example, verily your Rabb increases provision for whom He will and straightens. Certainly He is informed of and sees His bondsmen. Surah Bani Israel, verse 30. The same is mentioned in verse 82 of Surah Qasas, verse 62 of Surah Ankabut, and in two texts of Surah Saba, verse 36 and 38. And unto him shall you all be returned. Whatever one spends in Allah's way will be repaid when all shall return to him to render their accounts before him. No good action will be ignored there. Verse number 246. Alam tara ilal malai min bani Israila min ba'di Musa isqalu linabiyyin lahum lana malikan nukatil في سبيل الله قال هل أسيتم إن كتب عليكم القتال ألا تقاتلوا قالوا وما لنا ألا نقاتل في سبيل الله فقد أخرجنا من ديارنا وأبنائنا فلما كتب عليهم القتال تولوا إلا قليلا منهم والله عليم بالظالمين. Did you not see the children of Israel after Musa salam when they said to their prophet, appoint for us a king, so that we may fight in Allah's way? He said, would you then refrain from fighting if it was ordained for you? They replied, why should we not fight in Allah's way when we have been exiled from our homes and children? So when fighting was ordained for them, all save a few turned away. Allah is well aware of the wrongdoers. 247. وقال لهم نبيهم إن الله قد بعث لكم طالوت ملكا قالوا أنا يكون له الملك علينا ونحن أحق بالملك أحق بالملك منه ولم يؤت سعة من المال قال إن الله اصطفاه عليكم وزاده بسطة في العلم والجسم والله يؤتي ملكه من يشاء والله واسع عليم. Was a translation of verse number 247. Their prophet said to them, Allah has obtained Talut as king over you. They said, how can he be given wisdom over us when we are more deserving of kingdom than him, since he has not been given any wealth? He replied, Verily Allah has chosen him above you and increased him abundantly in wisdom and stature. Allah bestows His sovereignty upon whom He wills. Allah is all embracing, all knowing. Now, verse number 248. وقال لهم نبيهم إن آيات ملكه أن يأتيكم التابوت فيه سكينة من ربكم وبقية مما ترك آل موسى وآل هارون تحمله الملائكة إن في ذلك لآيات لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين. Their prophet said to them, The sign of his kingship is that the trunk carried by angels shall come to you, bearing peace of reassurance from your Rabb and remnants of that which was left by the house of Musa and Harun alayhi salam. Surely herein shall be a token for you if indeed you are believers. In these verses, as well as those still to come till the end of this part of the Quran, an account is rendered of the Bani Israel in which, like numerous lessons for the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After the demise of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, many Prophet alayhi salam followed in succession. Some of the popular ones recorded are Hazrat Yusha alayhi salam, Hazrat Shamun alayhi salam, Hazrat Shimwil alayhi salam, Hazrat Kalib bin Yukaina alayhi salam, and Hazrat Hiskil alayhi salam. All of these preached the teachings of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam and adhered to the Torah. However, irreligiousness crept into the Bani Israel, which resulted in their subjection by other nations. Their lands were overrun, and they, including members of their royal families, were imprisoned and taxed. Thus, they were made to suffer such oppression and tyranny, having no leader to guide them out of their predicament. Eventually, they approached one of their Prophet ﷺ, who also grew up suffering the same plight as theirs, requesting him to plead to Allah to appoint for them a king who would lead them in jihad against their aggressors. In this way, they could drive these people out of their land. They requested for a king because they were used to being led by one. The Nabi, knowing their psychology, expressed his fear that they would not keep up to their desire to fight due to their inherent cowardness. They, however, argued that they had a strong reason to fight because they had been exiled from their very own homeland and had been separated from their loved ones. In this manner, they were very convincing, but when the time and order came to fight, the Nabi's worst fears were realized, and all but a few were prepared to fight. The rest deserted, refusing to fight. Allah appointed Talut as their king, who took charge of the army with the advice and guidance of the Nabi. Commentators mention that the Nabi concerned was Hazrat Shamun alayhi salam. Once the king was appointed, they went back on their word according to their habit as they did in the incident of the bullock. They claimed to be more worthy of kingship than Talut, since he was not a wealthy person, as if to advise Allah on the matter. This is the strange mentality of man, that he considers the rich to be of status even though they may be ignorant, foolish, and miserly. The Nabi explained to them that Allah had chosen him since he possessed the criteria of a leader. He was wise, therefore able to plan strategies as well as of powerful stature. Given these two qualities together with adequate courage, any enemy could be vanquished. In the end, the decision of confirming sovereignty is Allah's, and none has the right to question him, nor present their opinion in the matter. Allah is all embracing, all knowing. Although this is sufficient for any person to accept, yet they were presented with a sign to attest this choice of leadership. The Prophet told them, the sign of his kindness is that the trunk carried by angels shall come to you, bearing peace of reassurance from your Rabb and remnants of that which were left by the house of Musa and Harun alayhi salam. The Bani Israel always used this tabut trunk to gain victory over their enemies by placing it before them in battle. It was, however, seized by the enemy and lost to them. Commentators have mentioned that this tabut can contain two tablets of Torah, together with a few of their splintered fragments, the cane of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, the turban of Hazrat Harun alayhi salam, and some man that used to be given to the Bani Israel. The sign to them was the return of this sacred relic carried by the angel. This was brought and placed before Talut. However, the possibility still existed for their inherently stubborn nature to prompt them to reject the trunk. It was for this reason that Allah added, surely herein shall be a token for you if indeed you are believers. Now, verse number 249. فلما فصل طالوت بالجنود قال إن الله مبتليكم بنهر فمن شرب منه فليس مني ومن لم يطعمه فإنه مني إلا من اغترف غرفة بيده فشربوا منه إلا قليلا منهم فلما جاوزه هو والذين آمنوا معه قالوا لا طاقة لنا اليوم بجالوت وجنوده قال الذين يظنون أنهم ملاكو الله كم فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين. Translation of this verse is, when Talut set out with the army, he said unto them, surely Allah shall try you with a river. Whoever drinks therefrom is not of me, and whoever does not taste it from me, except him who takes a handful. So they drank therefrom, save a few of them. When he and those who believed with him crossed the river, they said, we have no strength this day against Jalut and his hordes. Said those who knew they would meet their Rabb. How many a little group vanquished a large force of the permission of Allah. Allah is with the patient ones. 250. وَلَمَّا بَرَزُوا جَالُوتَ وَجُنُودِهِ قَالُوا ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. When they went into the battlefield against Jalut and his hordes, they said, O our Rabb, bestow on us endurance, make our feet firm, and aid us against the disbelievers. 251. فَهَزَمُوهُمْ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ وَقَتَلَ داود وجالوت وآتاه الله الملك والحكمة وعلمه مما يشاء ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لفسدت الأرض ولكن الله ذو فضل على العالمين. So they defeated them by the order of Allah, and Daud killed Jalut, and Allah granted him kinship and wisdom, and taught him that which he willed. If Allah had not repelled some men by others, the earth would have been corrupted. But Allah is the conferrer of grace unto the universe. تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وإنك لمن المرسلين. These are the portents of Allah which we recite unto you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with truth. Certainly you are amongst the messenger. After the arrival of the taboo, the Bani Israel had no option but to fight. When they began marching, Talut told them that they shall be tested. The test was that they were only permitted to drink a handful of water from a river they were to pass. Since it was extremely hot, most of them failed in the test. Commentators say that this was the river of Palestine, while others say it was somewhere between Palestine and Jordan. Since most of them drank more than a handful, their courage was lost, and they were left lifeless, saying, "We have no strength this day against Jalut and his hordes." Approximately 30 or 40,000 people left with Talut, but only 313 obeyed his instructions and surfaced on a handful of water. Only this lot stood firm before the enemy, but were hopelessly outnumbered. They, however, resolved to be steadfast and had strong hope in Allah's assistance, which allowed even the smallest of groups to vanquish much larger armies. It is narrated that Jalut proclaimed that a person be dispatched from Talut's army to face him in combat. Should the person kill him, Jalut, then his kingdom shall fall to the Bani Israel. On the other hand, if he killed the person, then their kingdom would be his. Talut wished to arm Hazrat Dawood salam for the task since he had only some stones as weapon. Hazrat Dawood salam refused any weapons, saying that the help of Allah is all that is required, since no weapon would be of any assistance without his support. He then stepped out to fight Jalut, who asked whether he was going to use only a catapult and some stones, which was used to shoot dogs. Hazrat Dawood salam replied, "You are the enemy of Allah, and therefore worse than a dog." Saying this, he aimed a stone between Jalut's eyes, which penetrated his brain and killed him. In this way, Jalut and his nation, the Amalika, were defeated. When the two armies confronted each other, the army of Hazrat Talut made the dua to Allah, "O our Rabb, bestow on us endurance, make our feet firm, and aid us against the disbelievers." After this battle, Allah gave sovereignty to Hazrat Dawood salam, as is mentioned in the beginning of Surah Sad. Commentators state that wisdom referred to the prophethood which Allah confirmed on him. The author of Ruhul Mani, Volume 2, page 173 says that Allah gave him kingship and prophethood after the demise of Talut and the prophet of that time. If Allah had not rebelled some the men by others, the earth would have been corrupted, but Allah is the conferrer of grace unto the universe. Allah counteracts the might of nation with others, thereby destroying oppressors. If only one nation was granted might and power, they would have subjugated the entire populace and cause strife throughout the passage of time. These are the portents of Allah which we recite unto you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with truth. Certainly you are amongst the messengers. The knowledge of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with regard to all these matters is indeed a clear sign of his apostleship, since he, being unlettered, was unable to read nor hear of these historical reports. His knowledge was purely from Allah alone. Narrated by Malumate Ruhul Mani, Volume 2, page 175. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.